Alright fellas, here we're back on Pokemon Masters, and before the video begins I'd like to announce that we have a giveaway currently going on. It should be in the feature section of my channel for the videos, as well as in the iCard in the top right corner of the screen. If you have not, submitted your entry and whatnot, go ahead, do that. The instructions and rules and whatnot are in the description of that video, so go ahead, get over there. Anyway, so I wanted to make a little bit of a video about the villain arc. So someone in the comments gave me an idea about my overall thoughts on the villain arcs and how they went, or whatever else, right? So I kind of just again want to go over all of the villain arcs from Kanto all the way up to Galar here and the final villain arc here, and just see what was done well, what was done bad, and whatnot, right? I'm not really going to include the story too much, but in terms of characters and just how everything was handled, I want to go over that. So we'll start obviously here with Kanto. So Kanto obviously started the Galar villain arcs, and it set a kind of a precedent, right? It set us the precedent that we're going to be getting, Poke Fairs, as well as the grid expansion, and not grid expansion, the power boost in EX4 villain event, or not villain event, legendary event / legendary adventure characters. So we obviously got Giovanni's EX in the prelude, and then in, I guess, would it be just the villain arc itself? Yeah, I guess the villain arc itself, we got the power boost for Giovanni and Mewtwo, which was good, right? And they, teased it for the second anniversary as ooh, the villain arc is going to be coming soon, so you get to see each region's villains and stuff. So it was really cool there, how they handled that. And in terms of characters, we obviously got, for part one, we had the Red and Snorlax and Classic Blue and Aerodactyl. Definitely a great way to handle it. Poke Fair characters, the protagonists, well, not protagonists because Leaf wasn't there, but, the main character and the rival of the arc. I think that was obviously a very good way to handle it for sure, and the sync pairs were pretty good as well. Giovanni's EX was obviously really, really nice there too, so I think part one of the Kanto arc was handled great. Part two brought us Signasuit Misty and Signasuit Erica as spotlights. This was the last time we ever got Signasuit spotlights, which is sad, but I'm kind of glad that they did it. I can understand why they don't do it anymore, so I'm not really going to go into too much detail on them being spotlights. I can, I could have honestly seen them being Poke Fairs. In today's world, I could see them being made as Poke Fairs. Signasuit Erica's kit, great on release, still good now. Signasuit Misty was definitely a lot worse, for sure, in comparison to Erica. I do think that her kit should have been altered a little bit. I do think that her niche is fine in being a haze nuker and whatnot, but I do think that they should have done a little bit better on making her kit to make her age a lot better and whatnot. I think maybe giving her some self-sufficiency, giving her some better ways to activate her multipliers, because I believe she has blind spot, I think, and her best stuff is agile. What I think it's raising evasion when she attacks. I don't quite remember, but I think they could have handled her a little bit better. But overall, not a bad start for the villain arc. Sorry, we got 2 Poke Fairs, 2 spotlights, and obviously we got the power boost for the first ever character. Giovanni's Mega was great. I do wish he got the Mega, but I'll actually go into detail on that a little bit later. So overall, Kanto arc, not too bad. Honestly, in my opinion, it's not too bad. The second villain arc we ever got was Sinnoh, and now I'm going to be honest, personal bias, Sinnoh is my favorite villain arc. I loved it, I still love it. I loved how they introduced the villain arc on the original Pokemon YouTube account. It was awesome. It hyped me up so much. But anyway, I think that this was a good villain arc. I really do. Part one, it obviously brought a Signasuit Renegade Cynthia, as well as Cyrus's EX and Lucas's grid expansion. All of it, not grid, Lucas's introduction. Lucas being a Poke Fair is obviously quite annoying to people because he is a main character. We are used to them being spotlights. The only other Poke Fair main character before that was Gloria, but I think Gloria set a precedent that they're going to start doing that just more often, but whatever, right? I do like part one. Signasuit Renegade Cynthia being a Master Fair to introduce the Sinnoh villain arc was a really good idea for the prelude, as well as Lucas and Dialga being Poke Fairs, and then both introducing zones. This was a very good addition. I know people may not like it, but I think it was a very, very good idea for sure, 100%. So them being the main characters for the Sinnoh villain arc was really good, really good. I did like the Master Fair and Poke Fair. I think that's fine. Part 2, it brought us Signasuit Cyrus and Signasuit Dawn, both of which are still really solid sync pairs. Cyrus still being really good with his sleep and dark zone and all of that. Dawn still being a really good support for sure. Both of them were also Poke Fairs. I think that's fair, right? Having 3 Poke Fairs and a Master Fair. I can definitely not blame a villain arc for having no spotlights. Honestly, I can't really be too mad about that, especially with these characters. You had the 2 protagonists, you had the champion, you had the villain. That's pretty much like what you would expect from a villain arc. Also, Cyrus's EX was great. His grid expansion was great as well. The stuff that helps out his dragon damage was good, as well as the thing giving him a little bit more self-sufficiency. It was also good there as well. So I can't really be too mad about Cyrus's grid expansion either. Honestly, that was fine. I think Sinnoh is probably still my favorite villain arc in terms of overall content that they added. One critique would be I think they should have added a spotlight or something, maybe to part 1. Like, we had the Team Galactic admins. I think maybe if they added maybe Saturn as a general pool unit, spotlight unit, whatever you want to call him, that would have been fine. Or like Byron. I know that he doesn't have any correlation, but of course, being a Sinnoh character, I feel if you would have dropped him, that would have been fine. Or of course, you could have dropped one of the Sinnoh Elite Four then. I know we ended up getting them later in the year, but, you know, maybe dropping one of them earlier would have been a better idea, or just a solid idea in general. I don't know, just depends how they wanted to do it. Maybe introduce Riley, maybe make him a spotlight. Wouldn't have been a bad idea. But honestly, I'm not really complaining too much about the Sinnoh villain arc. I can't. I like the Master Fair. I like the 3 Poke Fairs. It was all really, really good. Introduction of Zone, having the 3 zones here, as well as Dawn being a great support. Can't be mad, honestly. I honestly like the Sinnoh villain arc. Moving on to the Johto villain arc. This is where things started to get not really too hairy, I would say, but I guess kind of going downhill? I don't know. So, I'm not going to count Signasuit Morty as a part of the Johto villain arc, even though he was present for it, but he also wasn't a villain arc unit. He released, I'm pretty sure, at the beginning of the month, and at the end of the month, or near end of the month, we got Signasuit Giovanni and Nidoking, which was a great sync pair. I like him. Poke Fair, Dynamax, really strong. I think they were worthy of being a Poke Fair, 100%. But that's all we got for part 1, was Signasuit Giovanni. If I remember right, it was Morty, then we got the Sinnoh Elite Four, and then we got Signasuit Giovanni. And then the next month was obviously the Johto Trio. And obviously we had Silver's EX and Grid Expansion, both of which were great. His EX and Grid Expansion are still really good, 100%. But outside of that, that was all we got for Johto, was Signasuit Giovanni in part 1, and then the Johto Trio Master Fairs in part 3. I think doing the 3 Master Fairs was a bit too much, I'll be honest, I really do. They are still really good for sure. I like their kits and whatnot. Like, kit-wise, they're Master Fair worthy, of course, but I feel just for a villain arc, even though Johto didn't have any Master Fairs at that point and they kind of wanted to catch up, Unova still only has 1. You can't really make that argument anymore, I'll be honest. I just didn't feel that the 3 Master Fairs was kind of... I felt it was a little bit too much, I really did. But I guess they were kind of leading up to that with only having 2 Poke Fairs and then 3 Spotlights the month prior. I guess that made sense, but still, I wasn't really too big on the 3 Master Fairs. That's just how I felt. Maybe you could have made one of them or 2 of them a Master Fair. Like, I think Chris and Lyra definitely had the... I think Chris and Lyra could have definitely been Master Fairs and would have been fine, but I think Ethan probably should have been relegated to a Poke Fair, both kit-wise, and it just would have made more sense for him to be a Poke Fair. And for part 1, they should have given Silver his Signasuit at that point. They shouldn't have waited that long. If they would have given him with Sneasel, I think it would have still been fine. Like, if they would have just taken Signasuit Silver and Sneasel and put it back in the Johto arc on release, I think that would have been fine. I don't think there would have been too many problems. But yeah, whatever. I think that's probably the best idea, was to release Signasuit Silver as a Poke Fair alongside Signasuit Giovanni. Then part 2, have 2 Master Fairs and 1 Poke Fair. I think that would have been fine. Obviously, I do wish we would have had a Spotlight, but I couldn't really be mad with the setup that they would have made there, honestly. Unless they wanted to do Signasuit Silver as a general pool Spotlight. I wouldn't have been mad about that, but obviously that wouldn't have been too realistic, because at that point they realized they wouldn't make money off that, because they doubt they made money off Misty and Erica. Anyway, that was the Johto villain arc. Wasn't too bad overall, but I do think it definitely had some critiques. Hoenn villain arc, okay. Hoenn was put in at a weird time because it was obviously the anniversary coming up. It was meant to be anniversary bait, but because of that, they were also limited on the sync pairs that they made. So part 1 only had Signasuit Brendan and Signasuit May, which were fine, obviously, good sync pairs, whatever. Pokefairs, all of that. Had Zinnia's EX, awesome. But then part 2, it just had Sigma Suit Steven, and that was it. Sigma Suit Steven and Deoxys, which were a cracked sync pair, still a really cracked sync pair. But that was it, really. That was it. I don't like how they handled the Hoenn villain arc and adding it as anniversary bait. I think that they just kind of rushed it a bit too much. Like, putting your villain arcs as the, like, bait for something to come next, just in my opinion, isn't a great idea, because I feel like the villain arcs should have been centralized focuses to begin with. They should be your central bait where you want people to summon, like an anniversary and New Year's and whatnot, but they just treated the Hoenn villain arc as bait, not like its own separate thing that could have been great. So I feel like if they would have done it a little bit earlier, or have, just shifted the schedule a little bit, release the Hoenn villain arc part 1 where you had Sigma Suit Brendan in May, I think that's fine. Then for Pokefairs, or not Pokefairs, if you want to add, like, spotlights or something, you could add Hoenn, that's it, I can only think of that, or like a alt for Wallace, right? Adding a Wallace alt outfit would have been great, like Sigma Suit Wallace or something, but honestly, you could have saved Sigma Suit Wallace for part 2, so I'll hold off on that idea. You could give Zinnia and all, that would have been great, right? It would have been awesome. Like, it's not that, like, you can't give the character who's getting the grid expansion / power boost and alt, right, during their villain arc, because they give it to Cyrus. Like, Cyrus and Palkia got grid expansion and whatnot, but then they also gave Cyrus a Sigma Suit during the Sinnoh villain arc. So you could have given Zinnia a Sigma Suit and given her an extra outfit. Honestly, I think part 1 being Brendan, May, and like Zinnia would have been fine, and then part 2 being like Sigma Suit Wallace and Sigma Suit Steven, all Pokefairs. I think that would have been fine. Honestly, I think that would have all been fine. Having just all Pokefairs, no Master Fairs, no Spotlights, I think that's a good middle ground, a good medium. No real problem there. Or Sigma Suit Brendan, Wallace, and May part 1, and then Zinnia and Steven part 2, because I like the duo of Steven and Zinnia, honestly. Obviously, I do also like the fact that they rerun Archie and Maxie. I think that was a good idea, too. They also brought us Courtney and Looker. I don't think Looker's introduction was necessary. I think it was fine, I guess. I guess, but, like, honestly, you probably could have waited and added Looker either earlier or later, right? I think you could have definitely added Looker during the Sinnoh villain arc instead of the Hoenn villain arc. You could have added him at that point, just add him in as a, slot for a spotlight. Sure, could have done that. I think that would have been just fine. And then for the Hoenn villain arc, obviously Courtney was a good release. Maybe part 1 be Brendan, May, Wallace, and Courtney. Then part 2 be Steven, Zinnia, and Shelly. Spotlight Shelly, of course. I think that would have been a fine idea. Just have a bunch of Pokefairs and then 2 spotlights. I think that would have been great. Would have been good to diversify the general pool a little bit more. Wouldn't have been a bad idea. But as for the time frame, I don't know when you would do this. I really don't. But yeah, honestly, not really the worst idea, I would say. So, yeah. Give me your thoughts on the Hoenn villain arc anyway. I think it was a little bit rushed. I really do. But whatever. Going on to Unova. Okay, Unova was not really a mess, but like a lot of potential was squandered in Unova, I would say. Ghetsis' power boost and grid expansion, I honestly think are fine. A lot of people were really upset with it because, like, Ghetsis just wasn't, they didn't give him anything insane, but, like, I think he was fine. The EX helped him with his multiplier that he needed, helped him with his damage. He got more self-sufficient in his grid, which I think was really important because before that, you definitely needed a really good support to relegate for Ghetsis because he needed gauge, he needed special attack, he needed crit, he needed all of it. So I feel that him having the self-sufficiency was definitely good enough, honestly. I really do think so. But for the characters they released, honestly, they really rushed this villain arc as well because they knew they were releasing the Kalos and Neo champions the next month, and I just feel that wasn't necessary. I really feel that it wasn't necessary. They wanted to just jam in all these villain arcs instead of spreading it out a little bit more. Like, I feel for part 1, Hilbert and Hilda are fine. It's not really a problem. But then you could have also released, like, Nate and Rosa as well, or instead of Hilbert and Hilda, you could have just done Nate and Rosa instead. I get that, like, Hilbert and Hilda were the first protagonists, but Rosa still hasn't gotten a Sigma Suit, and Nate hasn't gotten anything, right? And Hilbert, obviously, he's already got his fall outfit, and Hilda had her summer outfit. Didn't she have something before that as well? Yeah, her special costume event unit, right? Hilda already had stuff. You didn't really need to give Hilda another alt. But Nate definitely could have used one. Nate could have used one. Rosa still needs her Signet suit. Come on, man. Come on. Could have done that. Or you could have just done all 4, honestly. Wouldn't have been that big of a problem. Part 2 of the Unova villain arc, I think you could have... Signet suit ends fine. Not as a unit. I think he definitely does need an upgrade for sure, but Signet suit end as a character, with Karen Black, I think that's fine. Hue and Colress are also fine, but I also kind of wish they would have given Getsus a Signet suit. I really do. I really think that Getsus should have gotten something, but they just never gave him anything, so, I mean, whatever, right? Anyway, so, yeah, part 1, give him the 4 protagonists something. Part 2, Hue and Colress were good, and then maybe Signet suit Getsus. I don't know who you would pair Getsus with, maybe, like, Genesect, even though Hilbert already has it, but, like, having another Genesect, shiny Genesect maybe, that would have been cool, honestly. Because Team Plasma did modify Genesect and all of that, right? So I think that would have been pretty decent of an idea. But yeah, they rushed it for the Kalos Neo Champions, right? Anyway, speaking of Kalos, moving on to the Kalos villain arc. There's a lot of things that I didn't really care too much for in the Kalos villain arc. For one, Signet suit Diantha's outfit, but sorry about that. But anyway, yeah, I do think Diantha deserved an alt for the Kalos villain arc. That's fine. I mean, I don't really see any problem with that. Whatever. The part 1 was, what, Diantha and Shauna, I think? Wasn't that pretty much it? Was Shauna and Diantha? That was whatever, honestly, but I think what you could have definitely done for part 1 was wait until your Neo Champion introduction later and introduce Neo Champions with the Galar half anniversary. That would have been fine. And just use Neo Champion Serena and Calum as part 1 units for the Kalos villain arc. Like, starting off with 2 Master Fairs, obviously that'd be different, and probably not many people would be too supportive, but it wouldn't be a necessarily bad idea. Honestly, I don't think so. Starting off with them 2 and then having Signet suit Diantha in part 1, I think would have been fine. Honestly, I don't think there would have been too much of a problem there. Part 2, which was originally Annabelle, Emma, and Signet suit Lysander. Scrap Annabelle altogether, move her out. I get what they were going for, but honestly, it just feels weird to introduce her in the Kalos villain arc when you're that close to the Alola villain arc. Like, why? Emma's fine for sure. I would probably move her down to a Spotlight, honestly. Her kit is good for sure, but like just character-wise, I feel she really would have benefited more for being a general pull just to a lot of people. Making her a Pokefair was almost pointless, I would say. Buddy move was fine, but you can just give Spotlights a buddy move. I don't find any problem with that. You could have moved Shauna to part 2 as well. That would have been fine. And then Signet suit Lysander being a Pokefair for part 2 would have just been fine as well. So part 1 as the Master Fair, Calum and Serena with Pokefair Diantha. And then part 2 with Signet suit Lysander Pokefair, Emma Spotlight, Shauna Spotlight. Or you could still keep Emma as a Pokefair. It would have been fine. But Shauna obviously stays a Spotlight. So it's more so me rearranging the characters for the Kalos villain arc than it is like a heavy tinker or anything. Sycamore ZX was obviously really, really good. I don't have a problem with it. Obviously, I can't. But the grid boost was fine. I don't think there's too much of a problem with it, but there could have been a little bit more, I guess, in order to make him a little bit better. But overall, I'm not going to complain about Sycamore. I can't. Anyway, second to last villain, well, third, I guess. Third to last villain arc, second to the last region, was the Alola arc. Another rushed arc, which was just 4 characters, Pokefairs, and then they were kind of done. Overall, I'd say that the Alola arc was kind of a shit show. Character-wise, I guess it was fine, but just story plus, I guess, plus the main character's grid boost was good for sure, and his EX deck. I'm not gonna complain about those. Those grid boosts and grid expansion, well, grid expansion as well as the EX, amazing, 100%, and it gave us a little bit more customization options, which was fine. But overall, they really could have done a lot more for the villain arc here. They should have done Elio and Celine, obviously, I do think so. We may be getting Alola Neo Champion sometime soon, but I think that they probably should have still put up Elio and Celine as the Alola arc, like, headliners, because, come on, you just do your protagonist. There's not really a problem with that. I don't see why you wouldn't have, especially because it's been a trend up until this point. So, yeah. I think part 1 with Elio and Celine would have been good as Pokefairs. Give them, if you want to keep the Tapu trend, fine, give them Tapus. I don't have a problem with that. Give Tapu Koko to Celine and then give Tapu, I don't know, Bulu to Elio. I don't care. And then probably have another character for part 1, have maybe Annabelle or Faba. I think Faba as a part 1 character would have been a pretty good idea, honestly. As a spotlight, of course, just add him into the game, wouldn't have been a problem, especially because they already had to model him for the arc anyway. And then for part 2, you could have done the other 2 Tapus. I think How having a Tapu is fine, so maybe don't give one of the protagonists Coco. Lana, Acerola, Mina, I don't mind these characters getting alts for sure, but I think just for overall the arc's sake, I think they probably could have gone a different route. So How having Tapu Koko I think is fine. The other 3, maybe not so much. Lana, giving her Tapu Lele is not a bad idea. Acerola is also popular. All these characters are relatively popular, but I don't know who I would give the other Tapu to. I really couldn't say for certainty. Maybe Lily. Obviously, Lily has not got an actual alt in over a year, and at the point of this villain arc, it would have been slightly over a year since she had an actual extra like outfit and whatnot. So I think Elio, Celine, How, Lily, alongside a Spotlight Faba, as well as Spotlight Annabelle for part 2. That would have been a good idea. Or Pokefair Annabelle. I don't care. But yeah, honestly, Elia, Celine, Lily, How, Annabelle, Faba. I think that would have been a good idea for the Galar villain arc. Alola villain arc. Just my inputs, honestly. I don't mind what we got, but I think just for overall hype and just changing things, I think my idea was personally better. But that's, again, just my input. And obviously the final region of the villain arc was Galar, obviously. Rose and Ileana's part 1 was good. I like Gloria and Leon for part 2. That was good as well. I don't think we got anything else, did we? It was just those 4, wasn't it? Damn. Wow. It really was, wasn't it? That's kind of crazy to me, thinking about it. Oh well, fair enough, I guess, though. What would I change? I think Rose and Oleana, part 1, both as Pokefairs, is fine. I don't really have a problem with that. Gloria and Leona's part 2, I also don't have a problem with that. I think we should have given Victor something, though, honestly. Maybe have Victor in part 1, like Rose, Oleana, and Victor. And then part 2, that would allude to part 2 having Gloria and Leon alts. Honestly, I think that would have been fine. Power Boost, Hops EX was good. His grid expansion was fine, I guess. It gave him the first aid, which was fine, but outside of that, he didn't really get too much. I kind of wish he got some more special defense buffs, and like some gauge, but oh well, can't really complain that much, I guess. Overall, I don't have too many complaints about the Galar villain arc. I think these 4 characters are fine. I think they're solid. I think Hops EX was whatever. That's fine. If we were to add a Spotlight, maybe add in Milo, Kabu, Mustard, Peony, someone like that, right? I think maybe adding them and giving them a little bit of relevance in the arc would have been a good idea, especially getting more spotlights in the game would have been a good idea, right? So, yeah. Galar villain arc, I overall am not going to complain, though. So, those are my thoughts for all the regions of the villain arc. But now going to the last villain arc, right? I think they could have done a little bit more for it, right? Because right now, as you can see, for this villain arc, we're just getting the Team Rocket Variety Scout, as well as Paulo and Tina in a Pokefair Scout, which, good idea, for sure. But you could have given Hoopa Giovanni, Hoopa, right? You could have given Giovanni to Hoopa, man, come on. He could have done that. Like, it would have made sense, too. Like, really? Man. Whatever. I guess. Yeah, I'm quite salty about it, don't worry, but you could have given him Hoopa. It would have been so cool. Obviously, I do like that they're dropping all of the Rocket Scouts, like the Rocket executives, but honestly, this Variety Scout shit is not the fucking way to do it. It's really not, because they literally went into the office one day, were like, alright, so we're going to release all of the executives. How do we do it? Pokefairs, no. Everybody would be pissed. Spotlights, no. No one would summon. Boom, Variety Scout. This is somehow a better middle ground. Bruh. You could have just done it like you did for Paulo and Tina, to where you got yourself a big featured Pokefair Scout with all 4 of them in it, and just split the rate a little bit between them, like 1% each or something. Maybe that would have been high, but still. Come on. These Variety Scouts suck. Especially because they haven't rerun yet. And you could have just gotten rid of this fucking Giovanni and Rhydon, and you could have given us Giovanni and Hoopa. I think Paulo's fine. Tina's a 4-star is also fine. I don't have a problem with that either. And I do like how they split the story here. But one big thing that I wish they would do is they should have given us the EX for the grid expansion for Giovanni. I know he got a part 1 in the Kanto villain arc. He got the EX and then the power boost for the Mega. But then for the final villain arc, you could have done a final villain event where you give probably Zinnia and Giovanni great expansions. How would Zinnia make sense? She wouldn't, but honestly, I'm not really too worried about that. I think that these characters should have gotten great expansions anyway, because the Megas really didn't provide as much to them as, honestly, a great expansion would have, I would say. I'd say so anyway, right? I mean, I think Giovanni probably would have benefited from more multipliers, but I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong there. Yeah, final villain arc is fine, but I do kind of wish we would have gotten great expansions for Giovanni and probably Zinnia too. I don't like this Variety Scout. I do like that they're dropping the executives, but it's not the best way to do it, in my opinion. Paul and Tina are definitely fine as Pokefairs, but I do wish Giovanni had it. Hoopa. I do. I really do. Also for the timing, I think they could have done the timing a little bit better. I liked Kanto. I liked Sinnoh. Johto being in May was fine. This, for the Sinnoh arc, if you didn't want to crunch anniversary time, you could have put it in October and then just like let it do its thing from there. You could have put the Unova villain arc in like January. I think that would have been fine. Put the Kalos arc in around the May slot, so same time I guess as the Johto villain arc would have been. Alola villain arc, you could have put this in again October this year. So honestly, I think them spreading out a little bit more would have been a better idea. And then you could have done the Galar villain arc in like November, that general area, right? And then you could have ended the villain arc in New Year's, right? You could have had a New Year, ended the villain arcs, and then that could have led into something new for the year itself, which I think would have been a good idea, honestly. That wouldn't have like crunched too much stuff, but it would have, you know, made things work a little bit more smoothly, especially because you'd be spacing out the villain arcs a little bit better than what you would have, and you wouldn't be like limiting them. Because the big problem with the villain arcs was like, for Hoenn's sake, it was right before the anniversary, so it was just crunch time. Like, they were crunching it together, and it just kind of hurt the quality overall. Same thing with Unova. They crunched it before the Kalos Neo Champions. And for Alola, I guess they just did this because they knew they wanted to do Galar for the, you know, pre-anniversary, so they just crunched it all into 1 month and just released these characters, and then they obviously, I think Galar was fine. I think Galar did fine. And then they wanted to finish the villain arc off here in the anniversary, which is fine, but I think it probably would have been a little bit better to finish it during the New Year's. Would have given a little bit more time to have the other villain arcs sit for a little bit and give them the proper like respect, I guess, that they deserve. But whatever. Anyway, overall, those are my thoughts for these villain arcs. I do think there are certain critiques that I have that I would change, but overall, I mean, I like the villain arcs. I don't have too big of a squabble with many of them. I do like the story overall. I think that they were handled pretty well. I love the end of the villain arcs. I have already seen it via, you know, Absol's posts on YouTube and whatnot. I do think that overall the villain arcs were fine. I do like the concept and whatnot, but obviously I do have things that I wish to change. Anyway, yeah, that's my ideas on how to change the villain arcs and just my overall critiques, I guess. Let me know what yours are down in the comments below, and yeah, I'll see you all later.